Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. Today, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible. We'll see where we land, but I have got a very strong opinion when it comes to how we conduct ourselves within a relationship. When you made a commitment to be in a relationship, there were several factors that you were looking at. One of them is this person amazing and are they lovely? Are they beautiful? And more importantly, one of the other decisions you made was you're sexually compatible. And then over a period of time, as you tried to strengthen the relationship and solidify the relationship by making more commitment, and that would be you started off as boyfriend, and then all of a sudden from boyfriend you went to fiance, and then from fiance you went to marriage, and then obviously then there's kids. So each point was another level of you showing commitment. As those commitments happen, you would have assumed that the more commitment you give, the more you're more likely to have from the relationship. And in this case, the more you committed, it feels like things were being taken off. So as soon as you got to marriage and the kids, pretty much you were almost sexless. So it was now just, it turned from you being the focus for her affection and love and affection to I'm just going to give it to you so you get off my fucking back. And I know that a lot of you guys are in this situation, and there's a few things that I think about this, and I think about it that there's definitely a contribution from you guys in the sense that the way you are seeking approval when it comes to the relationship. So before it worked, before the kids, before the marriage, it was okay for you to be industrious so you can get love back. And it was this real commitment with you. There was this real cycle within your relationship where you show your devotion and your love, which is part of the coaching process, that you show your love, you show your ability to provide, you show your ability to protect, you show all these certain things, and she picks you based off of that. So those are the things that she was looking at in order to commit with you. So you get into this sort of service mode, and then she appreciates the service by then being compliant within the relationship. Then over a period of time, there's a point where once you're in the relationship, there has to be a shift. And a lot of you guys have missed that shift. And that shift is that your investment to the relationship should be equally matched by your partner. And a lot of you guys, you find yourself sexless because you've continued in a place where you're looking to prove yourself continuously. And this is, in terms from a sexual standpoint, it's a big no-no. Now, when I speak about this, the last thing you ever wanted to do was to be a performing monkey, we used to call it, or a court gesture. The court gesture is, for those who don't know, is before the king would have a person who just entertain, basically a clown. And the court gesture will come and make jokes, will sing and dance, tell stories and so on. And he was just a nobody. Like you would get into high society, but still treated as a nobody. And a lot of you guys are still caught gesturing within your relationship. Look at me, I'm washing the dishes. Look at me, I'm doing all of this stuff. Look at me, I'm bringing in the bacon. There's this, you haven't got out of that. And one of the things that I know or I hear quite often is, if you want to see where your relationship is at, is how you handle crises. And I was speaking to one of my good friends, and they're going through a crisis as a relationship. And they were talking things through. He's handled it absolutely exceptionally. He's been a leader. He's been dominant around it. He's spoken what he needed to say. And there were points where there was friction. And one of the statements that she would say was, "Why are you making this about yourself?" And that was in response to him demanding more from the relationship, even though they're in crisis. Now, a lot of you guys, you take this sort of view of like she's some sort of precious egg, some sort of precious metal. So, at some point, if you squeeze hard enough, it's going to fracture and fall apart. And therefore you back off. So, and again, a lot of you guys, you've been in servitude, and she knows that. And it's an easy attack for you. So, for example, I pride myself in being a good provider, being able to protect my family. I pride myself in all of that. If my wife wants to really, really hurt me, she just has to call me a deadbeat dad. And that would affect me more than her calling me anything else. Because I pride myself in the thing. So generally when somebody says to you, why are you making this about yourself? Especially when you're demanding more. And again, it could be a case that you're being a selfish dude. But if you know that this is good for your relationship and it's good for you both long term. So for example, if you were going through a crisis and yet you still want to connect, and yes, you still want to be connected with her sexually, that's okay, dude. Like and I'm saying this because a lot of you guys will back off. Now, my friend came up with an amazing concept, and like I said, I'll always give credit where it's due. He was talking about that in the UK we have what we call authorized absence. So if my daughter is at school and she needs to go, usually, in fact, my son had quite a lot of them because he was going to orthodontist. So he was getting braces fitted. And it so happened that I think they were checking them every 6 months, I think. And every 6 months, I would have to give them a letter to say he needs to go and see the orthodontist. And then I'll take him out of school and then take him to the orthodontist. This happened for a few years. And the difference with that is that the amount of absences that he had, if he was not authorized, I would have been in trouble. And the concept here is that if there are going to be times within your relationship where it's not the right place to bring up sex, and that is authorized absence. Now, if my son has having an authorized absence 3 times per week for the whole time that he was at school, then there's a problem. There comes a point where they say, you know what, I get that it's going to the doctor and it's doing all of these other things, but we've got a concern for his education, we've got a concern on his well-being. In fact, they'll probably now be focusing on what's his environment at home, why is he going to the hospital for so many times. It will bring a different focus. And my point being is that your wife has got a certain amount of authorized absence available. So when your relationship is crisis, you can leave it for a time. But whenever you are in crisis, that's the point where you should be the closest. And if the desire is to, I'm going to be separate, or I'm going to do my own thing for now and only lean on you from an emotional perspective, that's not right. And you cannot stand for it. You cannot pick and choose as and when you are available to invest to the relationship. In fact, crisis cannot determine whether you are going to invest into the relationship or not. Like it's not. You cannot decide when. Like it's not a place where you decide. Like I'm just not going to invest. It's like, and there's an example with this because it's like my employer saying we've lost profits and then therefore I'm choosing to release you for now. And then when they start making profits, then they call me back. Like, they wouldn't do that. Like, when the crisis comes, they will start trying to figure out, how do we stop this? And when it comes to a point where they cannot possibly keep me, then it's a different discussion. But even then, they show a level of commitment. But it's crazy that some of our wives don't even give us that level of commitment. That the moment there's crisis, they shut off any ability to invest into the relationship. And that's not right, dude. Like, that's horrible. That's not good. And you cannot stand for that. You have to have a level of standards. If the shoe was on the other foot, or the situation was on the other side, you would lean into them and say, I need you right now. And hopefully that they have to actually accept that. Now, most of you guys are like, whoa, what if it makes things worse? And then she thinks I'm selfish and then she wants to go. Yeah, fucking go. Because life is going to be full of fucking crises. And if you cannot stand together within crisis, then you just have grown apart. Over a period of time, your relationship has come to the point where you can bring into question and say, you know what, moving on from here, I can see that when it comes to crisis, there is no way that we can actually stand together. And because we're not capable of standing together, then maybe it's a different discussion that we're meant to be having. You know, your phone is not dead. I just wanted you to think about it. Like, there's no 50-50 in a relationship. There's no, I'm 50%, I'm 100% in when things are good, and then 50-50 when shit hits the fan. Like, that's not commitment. That's not a relationship. And that's not the relationship I want. And it then comes back to your standards. What are the standards that you're willing to accept to be in this relationship? And if that's what you're willing to accept, then by all means you continue doing that. But for me, if at any point we hit crisis and she's 50-50, it's definitely a conversation. Does she want a abstinence from sex or approved abstinence? Yeah, dude, she tells me, and then I'll be like, you know what? Yes, I still want to connect with you. If you are not up to it, that's cool. But at the same time, we still have a relationship here. And this crisis that you're going through, it doesn't just go through you by yourself. As you go through it, it goes to me as well. I take it upon me because I love it. By default, when you go through crisis, I'm in crisis too. And not just me, but the kids too. So the moment we stand together, it becomes such an easier battle. And the moment we focus on our relationship, it becomes an easier battle. In fact, this is one of those things where, again, you know, I think most of you guys know the story about the 3 little pigs. That when everything was rosy, we felt like our shelters are built. And the person that takes the time to go through the hard work of building actual brick and putting brick by brick and fixing the mortar and everything to make it work, as in the last pig had gone through the difficult work to actually put up a structure. This is what relationships are like. You do the difficult work, have the difficult conversations, and when you do, it actually builds up your relationship. And in this case, when you are looking to connect sexually within a time of crisis, you are not in the wrong place, because this, again, it shouldn't be you trying to bust a nut, because if it is, then you're fucking cunt. But I'm on YouTube. I just remembered I'm on YouTube. I shouldn't be swearing. But anyways, that put me... okay, let me get my thoughts together. It shouldn't be selfish. Yes, sometimes we just want to bust a nut. But it has to be more than just that. You have to approach it from a different perspective. And there's a certain few things we talked about: attraction, we talked about, seduction and so on. And I think there's a few bits of that you can use to indicate, to see where you are within the relationship and how sexually comfortable she is to go. So there's certain things that you can do in order to check. And instead of you talking about whether or not you should be having sex, you can actually gauge to see whether or not you're close by. But if that is completely shut and she's remaining cold because she wants to remain cold within that relationship, then you have to ask the question, like, why does it mean that when we're in crisis, that the relationship comes to an hold. And I don't want to be in a relationship where when we hit crisis, like I don't want my relationship to be dependent on whether or not we're in crisis. That when we come into crisis, it just stops. That's not right. We need to have a different standard for our relationships. Need different standards for yourself. And when you set that standard of, this is what's my requirement for the relationship, and like there's a Ferrari analogy that I always give, that if the Ferrari costs 200 grand and you come to that dealership with 150 grand, still a lot of money, dude, still a lot of money, but you're not driving out with that car because you're 50k short. Now, if she's 50k short into that relationship, there's no business for you to be settling for anything less than what your asking price is.